welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips. My name is Anne, and we are also joined by Disembodied Hands Quindy and Disembodied Beard John, and maybe a Kuro with ears. I don't know. Wednesday is usually an earful Kuro day, but we don't have confirmation on that yet. So we'll just leave a ... after that. Good morning, everybody. Yeah. How's your week standing here in the middle of it? Mine is standing as too stressful. Trying to wrap up a lot of loose end stuff that I've ignored for a while on top of everything else I do, and it was bad enough last night that I just didn't go to CrossFit. I did a workout in my garage instead. I was just like, I don't even want to get in the car. I don't even want to go. I don't even want to be there for an hour. I was just like, sprint intervals in my garage and deadlifts, which we were doing tonight in CrossFit anyway, or last night. So I noped out. Guys. Yep. Yeah, too much work in too little time. Yep. Yes, do you have ears, Kuro? 5,000 words in the last 4 days. That's amazing, especially for you, Marich. I know you're a slower writer, or you say you are, or you don't have as much time. Maybe it's just that you don't have the time, and if you did have the time, you'd be able to write more. Yeah, well, good then. You have an excuse. You're hereby excused, Kuro. I was grumpy this morning because because I didn't go to CrossFit, I worked because that part of that was because we were late starting dinner because David got home late. And that meant I was late to work out, which meant that I was way too awake when we went to bed, which means I stayed up later than I should, and yada yada, you know. You know. Nice, Carly. Well, now you've got Vampires in December, which, Quindy would say, awesome. Put some of my paints from yesterday back, and we can get started on Ghoul. We worked on making the arm a little greener last time, and I really do like it better at this point. I think it just reads better. The other arm is still pretty just blocked in, so probably today we will work on making that arm better and blocking in the legs. I think that's what... I see that I missed a support in the worst possible place. It's sticking out of his underwear. Boop. There we go. Much better. Nice. Yeah, that's what Becca's challenge is for this month, Marich, is to open. First thing you do in the morning is open the manuscript. Yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's awesome, man. You'll be skating along in that book if you keep that habit up. Alrighty, so I think first thing, Kiki, enough. We're not going there today. Settle. Yep, you settle down, or you get stuck in here with Mom. So the first thing I think is brown liner. I want to outline some of this stuff and separate it from the skin. And then I want to work on the arm there and get some of those pustules and stuff blocked in with the reddish color, including getting some on the knuckles here, just like over on the other side. Yeah, I'm glad it's working for you, Marich. Therefore, it is a Christmas movie. All the sugar. I remember I looked up tablet last year. All right, so let's get our paints mixed up. Using a lot of actually just using the green and the orange are both MSP 2.0, but you could use instead could use troll hide rather. It's definitely darker and more vibrant than the Hydra is. You can see it. It's much more green, and it is darker than Hydra, but it would be a decent, like, since obviously you don't have Hydra green yet, if you want to do a recipe like this, I would use troll hide, and I would use marigold yellow instead of blazing forge, and I'd probably add white to the marigold, and use that instead of salamander and blazing forge. I think it's a new series, Turgeon. Alrighty. And then we're going to get our purple, which if you remember was sticks. And then for the pustules and the tongue and all the fleshy bits, we're using the orchid. So we'll do the sticks first. Ah, yeah, right. You said this series started after the last one, right? So I guess you could just be one continuing series. How do you view it, Rach? Cups and sticks of butter. Is Carly weighing it? Oh, yes. 1 kilogram of sugar. Oh, my God. The question was whether the new book was the last book in the Exile series or if it was a new series. I thought it was a new series, but I suppose it could, if it starts up after the last book of the last series, it could just be a continuation of the series. So are you aiming for one long series or are you aiming for 2 series? Yeah, I was going to say, Louisiana, any southern cooking, that amount of sugar does not faze, or butter. The vast amounts of butter. Alrighty. And then we're orange, which is blazing forge. Like I said, you could take marigold yellow and add white to it to get very close to this. Yes, you should put it in the Discord and we can all join you in making your crazy, evil Scottish holiday food. Except I'm already, I'm going to have more than enough crazy holiday food. 2 years after the last book. So it's a continuation. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I wasn't sure if you were aiming to do a new series or if this was just a book that you were kind of like a separate story in itself. It's more of a standalone. Or more of a, as you say, more of a, the story continues, etc. Not that you need to be terribly structured about it. People who like the Exile series are going to probably like it anyway, so it doesn't matter what it is. I was reading, I read the weirdest... I had never, really nailed down, Kiki, enough, what the difference was between sword and sorcery and high fantasy. I always felt they were very similar. But apparently, people who love to categorize stuff have... kind of, the way they describe sword and sorcery, I don't think I'd like it very much. Because essentially, sword and sorcery is more like a D&D game where you have, all people just adventuring to be adventurers, and, you've got a bunch of little encounters, but you don't have, an overarching epic plot or anything. And high fantasy, they think, is more like epic fantasy, which I always felt the two were actually dissimilar. I always felt like high fantasy was just a high magic, essentially, as opposed to low fantasy, which is low magic. Not that these definitions and crap matter or can't change over time. But it's like, I mean, there are definitely like the early examples of sword and sorcery. Some of them didn't really have like, they really were an interconnected series of individual adventures. Now, sword and sorcery versus high fantasy, Matthew. Trying to nail down what sword and sorcery is. Because I mean, fantasy is just is everything, right? Fantasy is not a very descriptive term, other than that you can say magic is present. Like that's pretty much like the definition of fantasy, I'd say. But even then, like magical realism gets away with a little bit of magic without being straight up fantasy. Right, example. Although they do point out that the Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser doesn't really have, as I recall, it doesn't have it. Does it have an overarching plot, or is it just like the boys running around having adventures? Because I read a bit of that back in the day, and I just remember the boys running around and having adventures. Oh, and the other thing they mentioned about sword and sorcery is that magic is always the antagonist in sword and sorcery. It's always not necessarily a bad thing, but it has a price, and it's like not like positive. It's not a good thing. Yeah, fantasy and isekai. Well, I think isekai is fairly like obvious, right? You're essentially that's your soul going from one world to another, like a soul from today's world going into a fantasy world, right? Is isekai. Like, isn't that like really the definition of it? And you can have fantasy without that. Now, portal fantasy and isekai very similar, right? Super similar, except usually with portal fantasy the whole person is going. Not always though. Yeah, barbarian protagonists hate wizards. Yeah, definitely in Fafhrd and the Grey Mouser, like magic is bad, right? But is that necessary in sword and sorcery? Because I always felt like do you guys know Oathbreaker by Mercedes Lackey? I loved those books. And I would really put my foot down and say that those are sword and sorcery, but magic is not a negative thing in those books. It's just a tool. Depends on who's using it. So I would swear that Oathbreaker and its trilogy of books are sword and sorcery, even though magic is not a bad thing. Because one of the characters is a sorceress. Magic does exact a price though. So maybe it falls under that is bad or exacts a price kind of thing, right? It's an interesting discussion. But those are the books that immediately pop to mind when I think more, 80s sword and sorcery as opposed to Fritz Lieber and like the old masters, relatively old masters, older masters. No, the broader that's why I didn't say Arrows of the Queen and Valdemar at all. Valdemar definitely, yeah, not so much. But specifically Oathbreaker and its trilogy. Because there's nothing that says that Lackey has to stick to the same genre in her world. Like, subgenre at that. No, but I think we do need the vengeful wizard versus the barbarian story. It's like reverse. It's like reverse harem, only it's reverse sword and sorcery. Yeah, but otherwise, I feel like Oathbreaker and its trilogy definitely feel like they have it has the episodic feel where you're really following the mercenaries on their little adventures. Or they're not so little adventures, but you get the idea. Yeah, it's an interesting distinction. I like having. I mean, I guess for me, I'm fine with it. Like my favorite of those books, though, are ones where the whole book does have an overarching plot. It's not just a series of vignettes. Like, too many of that kind of style of book can feel like it's just a bunch of short stories, like, thrown together. And that's not my favorite. Like, I really do like having a longer story to follow. I feel like it's more satisfying for me. Not everybody agrees. Nerds versus bullies. Yep. Sorcery and sword. Yeah, there we go. There we go, Matthew. It is kind of Revenge of the Nerds, isn't it? I'm sure somebody has written a story like that, though. So I'm just pulling in more of the purple here in the shadows so that we can bring out some of the darker shadows here. That's what gives us our dramatic shadows that we're pulling from here. Yeah, right? Like, otherwise it just gets it's kind of shallow, right? Like it's adventure. It's pure adventure fantasy without, development. But, like, I feel like, oh, crap. What's Marion Zimmer Bradley's, flagship series? I feel like that's kind of swordy and sorcery-ish. But, I mean, it makes sense that, like, at that point in the 80s, authors have begun to iterate on whatever, sword and sorcery template. Because it was very popular in, I think, the early 80s to be that way. I do not use a wet palette. Unless I feel like it. Anubis, I love your name, by the way. I'm into Egyptian mythology. I don't like it. I will use one, and I know how to use one. I can use one at a high level. When I do classes with instructors who use wet palettes, like Mark Masklin's, it was the latest one, the workshop that my husband and I went to, I will take the wet palette and I will work on it. At ReaperCon, I take it to conventions. I use it then because it's just handier to just be able to throw out the paper than to go to the restroom and clean off my well palette. However, for my own painting in my own world and my own setting, when I'm at home, 100% well palette. And the reason for that is that I really dislike having to worry about the viscosity of every brushful of paint I mix. And I like to be able to dial my paint in to exactly the level I need it to where it will work for the technique I'm doing and then just paint. So it allows me to better control my paint consistency. I find it easier to unload my brush on the side of the palette. I like being able to use how the paint kind of falls off the side of the well as a measure of how thick or thin it is. But mostly it's just control. It just allows me to dial in my consistency, and then for like half an hour I can just paint and not have to worry about how thin or thick my paint is. I always advise new people that they should try both. Because especially when you're starting and you really don't have a good grasp of paint consistency, having the well so that you can mix stuff in ratios like 4-to-1 paint to water, or 2-to-1 paint to water, and kind of learn how each of those feels can be very valuable if you learn by doing. Whereas the wet palette, you certainly can learn on it. It's just going to usually take you a longer time to really nail like the amount of water on your brush and what it means. How much water do you keep in your sponge, like for different paint lines, that's the other thing, is that I can just thin everything here and not have to worry about the fact that like with Reaper MSP on a wet palette, I have to keep my wet palette a lot drier to have it work well. Whereas if I'm working with a thicker paint or even a tube paint on a wet palette, I can keep the palette a lot wetter and should. No, the answer to that is very easy. If you watch this video while I do it, the stream, you'll see that my paint stays wet. And the reason is that I'm not just using one drop of paint. So the key to using a well palette, one, is to find one with smaller wells. And this one is about the size of my thumb, so it's a very small well, and that's part of it. So small and deep. And then you want to put at least, like, usually 3 or 4 drops of paint in there and then add your water. You want ideally like at least 5 to 6 drops of combined paint and water in the well. When you have that much, essentially what you're getting is a puddle of paint with the surface up here. So there's less surface and there's a fairly deep amount of fluid. So there's less surface evaporation, and that's why the paint stays wet for me for like, half an hour. Sometimes I'll go 45 minutes before I have to actually add water if I'm thinning my paint more. Right now I'm at a 4-to-1, and I'm about to actually add water to some of these because my purple, for example, needs to be thinner. So now I'm at a 4-to-2, that's 6 drops, and 2 of it is water. It's going to take quite a bit of time for that water to really start evaporating, especially because my environment's a little colder since it's winter. So I can also use the palette surface to kind of see, what my transparency's at, all that kind of thing. But yeah, if you're struggling with, did we just get a raid? Yeah. But if you're struggling with the wet palette, yeah, try a well. Try to get one that's, like I said, has smaller wells. Don't get the big flower-shaped ones. They're really wide and flat, and essentially your paint will dry out right away. So you have to use a little bit more paint in there. If you're worried about wasting paint, which I always never get because there are like 400 drops in one of these bottles. We never use them all unless it's like pure white or pure black. Or in my case, brown liner. But if you want to keep your paint good for longer, I don't think I have one here. But I usually keep a piece of cling wrap or saran wrap, plastic wrap. And if I need to, if I want to paint the next day as well using the same colors and I don't want to mix them up, I'll put 1 extra drop of water in each of these. I'll add a drop of water to all the wells around it. And then I'll put the plastic wrap over the top and fold it so that it's nice and sealed. And I can easily paint with the same colors the next day. And usually I can do that for 2 or 3 days in a row. So it'll keep good for as long as you add the extra water around it to give more humidity. It'll do great. The other thing, if you just need to step away for a little bit and you want to preserve your paint, Rhonda, who's another lady who streams on this channel, she gets a big sponge and she'll just get it wet and squeeze most of the water out and just lay it right on top of her palette. And that amount of moisture with the sponge up there, it won't add any extra water to the paint, but it will keep everything wet for, until it dries out, at least an hour while you go away and do other things. So yeah, so we all have our colors that we use a lot of, but in general, most of these bottles, you're not going to run out unless you're painting an army, or it's one of your very commonly used colors. I go through a pure white and brown liner like they're going out of style, but otherwise I'm not concerned about the idea of wasting paint. So anyway, that's my gospel on the well palette. You also can, no problem. I have a YouTube also, and I have a video, I think, about this on there. Wet palette versus well palette. They're both really useful, and it also depends on your style. A lot of painters who like to paint a little bit more fast and loose, they like the wet palette a lot better because it lets them just like seamlessly blend and mix spot mixes, and it lets them be a little more versatile. I'm a little bit more of an anal painter. I like to be more focused, more detail oriented. I'm more perfectionistic about it. I want to dial stuff in and get it just right. So for me, the well is a better choice, but it's really an individual kind of choice, and it also can change as you develop. So if you're a beginner and you're struggling with the wet palette, you may go to the well, and then you may get really good at judging paint consistency and learning to mix colors, and you may be like, yeah, but I want to get more into that kind of color mixing stuff. I want to be a little more loose. Then you can switch back to the wet palette, and you may find that you get more mileage out of it because you understand your paint consistency better now. You understand, brush loading, you understand, different techniques, and then you can use it. You can flip back and forth. So, and then, a lot of painters like Kirill Kanev, who's one of the better painters in the world, Kirill's from Russia, and he uses both. It depends on the technique that he's using. So he'll use a well palette if he's working with thinner paint, and if he's working with thicker paint, he's going to use a wet palette. So it's not all, it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both. Yeah, there's one with a lid, but I mean, the last I checked with the ceramic palette, the lid doesn't fit on there like perfectly, right? It doesn't make a seal or anything, and that's why I like the saran wrap better. Yes, that's true. It does have a use. seen the glass palettes. I mean, is it a flat glass? Usually my thing is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Yeah, I suppose that you could do the lid will keep it pretty good if you put the extra water in. But yeah, I haven't seen the glass palettes. Is it what is it? What exactly is it like? Is it a combo of glass and ceramic? Is it, which is kind of like porcelain, to be honest. I just noticed some nubbins I have to take off, guys. We missed some nubbins on the weapon. Some little print artifacts. I'll get most of them later. They were bugging me. And of course I've got Kiki's fur on my model, because I always have Kiki's fur on my model. It's omnipresent. Alright. Alright, so hold on, I'll try to find a picture because I'm having a hard problem with this. Envisioning it. Glass and ceramic palette. I mean, my big problem with a glass... Oh, I see. I see what you're saying. So it's a ceramic palette with a piece of glass that fits over it? Yeah, I mean, there's no reason that wouldn't be, like... The biggest problem with this is honestly breakability. It's going to be fragile, right? Let's see. And then we've got a flat glass palette. So glass can be very good for oil paint. But I'm not a fan of it for acrylic because it's not giving you enough of a... It doesn't give you any fluid. Oh, no, we came off. Now I need to actually put some putty down here. But it doesn't give you the surface area thing. You need to have a very small surface area exposed to the air and fluid in the well. Like, if you don't have that, I just feel like it's... Yeah, you can close it and it'll stay wet if you've got water underneath it, or you've got a lid and water and you're able to introduce moisture, but it's not going to keep it wet while you're working with it. Even using heavy body, it's like, if you don't, like, it's just going to dry. Like, yeah, the heavy body is going to, like, the center, the interior is going to stay wet for a little while. I honestly think if you're going to do that, you want to do one of the cold palettes, right? That keep the area, the surface colder so that it limits evaporation that way. But I mean, seems kind of gimmicky to me. Like the glass ones are wonderful for oils. I could see that. But or slow drying acrylics, you could maybe do it, but I think I would still opt for a normal palette. Yeah, some of this stuff is just gimmicks where people are like, hey, this looks really cool and it feels really nice. Painting on glass can feel really nice. I actually have a glass palette in the other room that I got specifically for oil paint because it can feel really it's super ultra smooth, and when you're mixing your paints it feels good, and it's there's no fibers to get in your paint like with some of the wet palette papers, although most of the wet palette papers these days are more like a parchment where there are no fibers. But yeah, so feels nice, but I wouldn't use it. And of course I don't really use oils anymore. So yeah, it's a pretty shiny thing. Yeah. I mean, if you are painting with oils, then it can be very convenient because you just wipe it off. It's so easy to clean. That's why glass is super good for oils. Like the feel of it, and and then the fact that you can just go blook and it's all gone is lovely. It's really nice. All right, I'm going to add a little bit more water into my... do I really want to add water into my orange? I think I actually want to add a little water into my green. as I'm tuning my colors while I'm like discussing this. But yeah, with acrylics, the thing to remember is you need something to retard the drying process. So either it needs to be chilled, like the chilled palettes, or it needs to have, a depth to it so that the fluid and the limited evaporation surface will allow it to stay wet for longer. Or it needs to be a wet palette where water is actively acting to keep the paint wet. Like those are really kind of your choices. And then, but if you're using oils or you're using slow drying acrylics, you have some other options. Though honestly, I still used my ceramic palette for my slow drying acrylics. I did buy a bigger plastic palette for the slow drying acrylics with a tight fitting lid, like one that was actually airtight. No, there are chilled palettes out there. It's like putting your ceramic palette in the refrigerator for a long time. But I think, hold on, there might be something actually. Like, essentially, keeping your palette cold can cause less evaporation. I think people are just putting their ceramic in the refrigerator because it holds cold. Yeah, it's not something you can buy. It's just what they do. That's what I thought. I was realizing. I have been using the golden slow dry acrylics. They act like oils, only they're acrylics. And they dry a lot faster. I showed this yesterday. I painted this with them. She's just in a work in progress stage at this point. But all of the work on her was done with just wet blending with the slow drying acrylics. I was looking for something that would allow me to wet blend like with oils, only be no solvents. So she is done with the golden open is what they're called. Golden open slow drying acrylics. They act like oils when you're actually painting with them, but that means you do have to add white to get opacity. Be aware. You do have to know how to use your general artist toolkit as far as canvas painting goes, which is if you want coverage, you add white, or you add another high coverage color that's similar to the color you're working with. There are plenty of options in their line, though, for higher coverage yellows and reds and stuff like that. Yeah, I think they're all do-it-yourself, the cold palettes. But yeah, so the point is you can wet blend, and it stays wet for lots of minutes. Like, I say I was able to work at least for 5 or 10 minutes on a section before it started to dry. And that is also going to matter. It's also going to matter, though, how thick you're applying your paint. Like, I thinned my paints way down to work on her. And so it started to dry. I would say no. I say for oil wash techniques, oils are still the best option. But you would need to experiment with that yourself, Matthew. Just because oil wash techniques depend very heavily on the actual characteristics of oil paint. And I'm not certain that an acrylic would be the same way. Just because that oil substrate is going to act differently, and it's going to seal differently. And my gut reaction would be you wouldn't get as good of an effect. You might be able to use it to get close. I mean, you can always glaze. But the thing about the oil is that you can spread it really thin over a surface, right, with those oil wash techniques. And it'll still, seal itself and dry. It still has durability because the oil is the fixative. And the oil also keeps it from surface breaking, right? So you don't get any beating up. So I think you need to still use oils for oil washes. It's the only thing I'll use my oil paints for is if I need a specific action like that. But what I was looking for was a means to wet blend as quickly and easily as I could with oils to set up a model faster and to essentially reduce the amount of time I spend painting so that I could finish models faster. That was my goal. And I would say for that, if you're good at wet blending, if you embrace it like I do, and And I also have a little bit of history with oil paints from back when I was in college, art school kind of thing. And also, even when I was a kid, I worked with oils. So I have a history with them. I really love to blend with them. It can be an efficient way to speed up your process. And that's what I was looking for. So I'm very happy with them for that. I think I painted this model. I think it took me like 12 hours where it would have taken 20 before to get to that point. Yeah, I mean, because oil washes, part of the point is that they don't break, right? You can put them really thinly over a surface and you'll get a perfectly even coat of pigment because of the oil substrate. And also because the oil is not just the vehicle, it's also the fixative, it's going to be strong when it dries. Whereas when you stretch out an acrylic substrate, you tend to make it a lot more fragile. There are exceptions, like really high acrylic paints that are super fine particle and very transparent. Those tend to still be very durable, even when stretched thin. But they also are extremely transparent, and it still works a little differently because it's oil and water. It's two different things. So yeah, it depends on your goal. For my goal of essentially speeding up my painting process, these slow drying paints are perfect. I bought a bunch of, I started with just their sample packs, which they have like smaller tubes and they sell them on Amazon. And just to try them out. And then I added some of their higher coverage. I ordered some of the higher coverage yellows and stuff in the bigger tubes. And now I'm sad because I have the next mini I have to start. I actually can't use them because I'm supposed to be testing my Chimera Velvets. So I'm going to be using them for everything. Just bringing in, not even bothering to make this neat. I'm just pretty much blocking in brown liner around the hand here. To keep things separate. And I've lined around that little bone. The bones in his skin, just like we did over here. And as I work on these, the lining will become less apparent and more natural. But yeah, so bottom line is there's so much crap out there, and some of it's going to work for you and some isn't, so it's worth kind of experimenting. But always when you experiment, I mean, unless you have money to burn, but if you don't have money to burn, keep in mind what your goal is, right? Like, what are you trying to do? And ask yourself whether the thing that you're going to buy can get you there, right? Like, buying all those golden open acrylics, that was a fairly sizable investment on my part, which is why I bought, just the starter things to start out with. But I knew very well, like, what my goal was. I knew I wanted to paint faster, finish the early stages of a model faster, get through the drudgery of the base coat faster, and ended up with a blended effect that would be really easy to refine. And so knowing that, I was able to test the paints and see if they could do that thing, right? And just reading about them, I thought it was likely. The only question I had in my mind was, are they going to, like, sometimes tube paints don't thin well to the levels we thin them. So that was my question mark, was, are these going to be able to thin the way I need them to? Because I work with really thin paint. The drudgery, yes. It is a gnarly tongue, in fact. So I'm just putting in my purples in the shadows here. Just like we've got a lot of purple here on the other side. And I actually put in a little bit of orchid. So actually, that's the one color I haven't mixed up yet. So I'm going to grab that and we're going to add that to our palette. My shadow color is mostly the Sticks purple because it's darker and cooler. But I did add some of the red color to the elbow on the other side. So the orchid purple is what color the tongue is. It's actually a very red purple. It's the closest thing to a red on this model, which means that it's going to read as red if I put it in appropriate places. And it's a very transparent color, so I don't need very much water in it to work with it. But mixed with the white, it makes a pretty good pink. And it's the color of his tongue, and all of the fleshy bits that I'm putting in are that color. I even am putting in a little bit of it on the belly and stuff. So that's our color. Let's get to it. I think I do want to line the fingers as well before I start really getting into a lot of this. I might thin down my liner a little bit. So I always line the fingers on 28s as well. It really helps to separate out those details, make the parts of the hand stand out so it's not just a glob of skin color. But yeah, if you have any more questions about palettes or about paint lines, go ahead and shoot them out. This stream exists to be distracted. We paint minis on here, but the main point is to answer questions. I get bored when I just have to talk to myself. And I think I'm gonna, did I do it on this side? Yeah, I think I'm gonna darken down. Usually I start the fingernails on monsters and the claws really dark. And then bring them up later. You mean like in regular life? No, I don't do that stuff. Mostly because I can't be bothered. Like the only time I ever like put on like toenail polish is when we're going to Hawaii and I know I'm going to be in sandals for a lot of the time. So there's no point in painting tiny dragons onto my my fingernails. Plus, as an artist, honestly, I'm so rough on my hands that it would all just chip and look terrible after like 2 days. And I just don't have the patience or the time. Oh, you meant on the minis, yes. So, okay, so the jazz guy that we just painted for David's parents, that's almost done. He has fingernails. Hold on, I'll show you. To my mind, the fingernails aren't quite done because they need to be more of a lighter, fleshy tone. So, what we've done, let's back up. This is Jazz Dude. He's a present for David's parents for Christmas. What we've done is just very lightly brought out the fingernails. Like I am right here, the thumbnail is a good example. So I've used a dark brown to very lightly bring out the nail. And then I've made it lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit. And that's about same down here with the little pinky nail. But they shouldn't stand out greatly. Like if you look at mine, they blend right in, right? So, and his are going to be shorter. He's a musician and he's a guy. So we pretty much just very lightly lined outside of them, and otherwise keep them about the right thing, about the same color. I wanna lighten and pink them out a little bit more, but it's But it can be dangerous to go too far, because then it looks like he's got fingernail polish. So instead we've kept mostly with the skin color and just made them a little lighter. Yeah, everybody's different, right? So it's up to you. And in my case, I'm like, I just don't want his nails to show up as a different color, because that's not the point of the figure, and it would look bad to give the wrong impression. So, but yeah, on monsters, absolutely 100% always paint the nails. 100%. The claws. You need the claws. They're part of the threat. On 28mm, most of the time the nails aren't actually sculpted, and it's not worth painting them because you just wouldn't see them at that scale. The only exception is Werner Klock models. He always sculpted his finger and toenails on his models, and so when he sculpts it, I paint it. But most models don't have them sculpted. Yeah, you don't want to draw attention. Like, that would, if the fingernails got too pink, it would totally draw attention, and it would look like people would be like, what? So you've got to keep in mind, like, color's there for a purpose when you're doing that kind of thing. Like, as an artist, be conscious of, like, how distracting something might be if it's not the point of the model. All right, let's get to making this hand look better. And you could totally do that, Laura. But even then, sometimes the thing that's natural might, when you try to do it, you might find that it looks too distracting at the scale we're working, right? Because that's the other thing about how we're working, is the scale makes a difference. So that's the question mark there. All right, I think this isn't a pustule. I think it's a print line. Yeah. Sometimes it's hard to tell what's a pustule and what's a print line. We'll find out. But I think that's a print line. So yeah, even something that looks right and looks natural on a photograph online might look a little bit too much when you put it on a model that you're trying to, accentuate things, or it just ends up looking a little bit bad, because if you step back, you realize that it's too much. So the thing to do if you're using a photo reference then is to take that photo reference and shrink it down on your phone or your monitor until it's the size of the miniature you're working on. And then you can see, okay, can I even see that color, right? Does that color even carry? You can always choose to do it if it aids the painting in some way, if it actually looks kind of cool if you overemphasize it, for example. Or maybe the pink repeats the color around the model, like I'm doing with Orchid Purple here. And so it serves a purpose that way, right? I'm putting a tiny bit of purple underneath these big veins and bones under his hand. I'm getting a little bit more green in here. Because again, we want to make these a little bit more green than I had over there. And I still need to lighten this other side, and I need to green it out just a little bit more. It's being held up toward the light, but I still feel like I went too yellow with it. Granico. and this all of this like goes out the window if you don't care about realism, right? But it's still, you should still be considering it if you're trying to create a successful like miniature, if you're trying not to distract people by fingernails when you really want them to look at something else on the figure. So yeah, it's all what's your purpose. Let's see here. I think I just went a little bit too yellow and not light enough over here, so I think I'll be putting a little bit more white in on my highlights. Maybe the base question is always, what are you trying to do here? And the base answer can be, I'm just painting it for me, not anybody else, and so it doesn't matter. I'm going to try to paint these because I want to. That's totally valid. All right, I want to mix lighter yellow green, orangey green. Highlight the skin over here, and I'll actually take it over to the other side too. This time I decided, since I went too yellow with the highlight on that arm, I'm mixing a color. It's kind of like this. It's yellow. It's the Blazing Forge plus the white, but it also has a bit of the green in it. And I'm looking for kind of a warm, really washed out chartreuse. An example of a color we would never sell, but that actually will work really well as a highlight color for this. Yeah, I didn't see the question, but if anything is about like Reaper plans or Reaper stuff, like the store stuff or whatever, or who sculpted the whatever, then I don't know. I haven't been at the headquarters for a long time. And even when I was, like, sometimes it would be just like, oh, so-and-so sculpted this? You know, you just wouldn't be in the loop on the new models, and so you'd be like surprised by them. So I'm just lightening up some of this highlight with that color that I just grabbed. And I am using it to essentially tamp down the yellow look. That works fine. Yes, you need your players to focus on the totally wrong mini. Yeah. That makes sense. Alright, that's a little bit better. And now on this side we'll take that color and romp around with it. Though I'm very lightly blocked in this side, so it's got almost no detail, and it really needs some love now. I think I don't really want to thin this green anymore. Put the darker green in here. Quindy will find the answer. I was going to say, I thought there was sculpting cred in the store. Thought you could see who sculpted something. So bringing in some darker green here, I want to bring out all these little like muscles, corded muscles. Oh, it's not listed yet. Got it. Comprende. Yeah, then it's an Ask Reaper kind of question. John would probably know. So we're bringing in more of the reddish color. Ah, there we go. Glenn Harris. Carrie to the rescue. Aw, that's cute. He sculpted it for his mom. That's really nice. Good job, Glenn. Good job being a good son. Mix up a highlight here on the top of my palette just to highlight this. Just mix some white into the orchid. Cool. Yeah, Daryl's really come a long way as a painter. Alright, so just a little bit of pink around here. Kind of like blend it in with a bit of this green just to make it a little bit more organic. Get the color in there on the elbow. I think I also want to make that pink color on some of the skin that's stretched over these bones and stuff on the other side as well. Alright, let's get a little highlighting in here. And I'm taking that color I mixed with the yellow, the orange and white, and plus a little bit of green. Plus I'm taking just orange and white, the Blazing Forge plus a bit of white, and I'm using that. In fact, it's time to drop some water into that Blazing Forge. So we've been painting for about an hour, and it's the first time I've had to add water to that. But I definitely need to pop a little more water into it if I want it to blend nicely, or nicer anyway, so I'm going to pop at least a drop in there. They're almost always right, yeah. I want them to redo Christmas night and Christmas Eve as 3D prints, because those models have such great detail on them. But in metal, my metal ones are just not that great. Or Siocast. You hear that, John? Christmas night and Christmas Eve have to totally be redone in 3D print or Siocast, so that we can have a super clean sculpt to paint. Because I keep looking at my metal ones and being tempted to pull them out in December for you guys, but then I'm just like, just like that. Christmas pudding, that's funny. But yeah, I feel like those models are real standouts, and it would be great to have better versions of them for the holidays. Alright, so now that I've gotten that thinned down, let's see if I've gotten it thinned too much. I might have gotten it thinned too much. In which case I'll pop some more white into it to give it a little bit more. I don't mind mixing white into my orange because it's a highlight anyway, so. Alright, now we'll see. Alright, that at least gives me a little bit. Still feel like it needs a little bit more. Yeah, with how shipping is between us and Europe, I would not be surprised that there was delays in stuff getting things in stock and take a little while to get everything over there. All right, I added a little bit more paint. I thinned my Blazing Forge a little bit too much. So I added a little more paint. I was a bit disgruntled this morning because I've been trying to, I usually wake up and David is still in the bathroom and the shower and stuff, and I usually flop around on my phone, but instead I've been bringing my laptop to bed and trying to write first thing in the morning to get some words in on Queenmaker. It's kind of fun, all the Victorian research I've been doing to make my pseudo-Victorian city feel right. But I was disgruntled this morning because I had to struggle with it yesterday, but today the words just wanted to come out. But David got out of the shower early, so I was like, argh! So I had to stop writing, even though I didn't want to, and go and get my day started. There we go. Now it's the right consistency. Now I can use it to bring out details. Hey there, Luca. This is my dude. This is my latest dude, Luca. He's very non-Anne style, but I like him. Such a good model. So I'm adding pinky purple tones and highlighting some of this green. Thank you, Luca. I like him a lot. It's not usually my style. I'm not drawn to, like, he's kind of nurgly. That's not usually my thing, but I'm really enjoying painting this, actually. It's such a good sculpt. Such a good sculpt. I'm gonna lighten the knuckles before I throw some pink on them, guys. Pinky purple. Just so the color shows through better. Luca likes his Nurglies. Oh, good. Yeah, I look forward to seeing your version. This one is very saturated. I haven't painted a secondary color triad model in a while, so it's like being able to mix in all the greens, oranges, and purples together is fun. It's a nice difference from my usual style. I got my Chimera Velvets. Did you go in on that Kickstarter, Luca? Have you tried them out? Or did you get, like, ones to try out because you're, like, famous and stuff? Literally the whole color wheel on it. I have done those. I went away from it for a while. Like, I used to do, like, much more throwing in, like, all sorts of different colors. And I found that I liked limited palette for a while, so I went that way instead. You know, we all go back and forth, right? They sent you a couple to try out, but not the whole range. Did you play around with them, and what did you think? I found it interesting. They were kind of halfway between Master Series and, like, traditional acrylic ink as far as viscosity. They're actually closer to paint. I like the punchy colors, though. That's what I was hoping to get from them. Laziness prevents you from using anything that isn't just simple acrylic and a brush. I know, right? Yeah, right. Yeah, I never end up... Yep. I was pretty much planning to use them for glaze because I glaze so much. And sometimes I want a really punchy color to glaze with. And superfine pigments are good at that. So that's why I was excited about them. Because I have been doing a lot of that kind of color shifting glazing stuff lately. So I'm interested to see. I'm going to try to paint something with them in actually the same style as one of my favorite watercolor painters. Because I figure they might do well at that. So I've got a bust that I'm going to try to do in her style. She's very, very saturated colors on her stuff, so it should work well. I hope. But yeah, I'm with you on, like, the airbrush. I just never reach for it. I'm like, I can get the result, you know, close enough to the result of an airbrush by just glazing with a brush and using thinner paint. And I don't have to set up an airbrush and, like, remember how to use it and then, you know, have to clean the dang thing afterwards. David still uses airbrush for very specific things. But yeah, I'm always just kind of like, you're just going to do that with a brush? You really want to set that whole thing up? Oh, you've been looking for... yeah? Oh, awesome. Yay! I'm happy you finally have something other than dwarves. Or is it that you got a bunch of dwarves? Hi, Kiki. Do you want to say hi to Luca? He likes dogs. Hey, Kiki. Come on up. Come on up. Yay! Here you go, Luca. The big flu hound is here. She's shedding so bad. She is shedding so bad right now. You are the biggest shedder. You are the biggest shedder. I know you look astonished. Oh, good girl. Yeah, good girl. All right. Good girl. And she only gave herself a little shake, so there's only a slight avalanche of fur that just landed on my palette. She's a total goofus. Usually the girl dogs of this breed are like more serious. She's serious about thinking everything is an axe murderer. But otherwise she's a complete goofus. She only looks majestic when she's like, you know, when she's forgotten herself temporarily. I suppose when she's like, they always say that, like, German Shepherds specifically, but I mean this breed is genetically a lot German Shepherd. It's like the majestic German Shepherd that you see, like, standing nobly on a pinnacle of like rock is actually like a 10-year-old dog that just, like, doesn't care anymore and has no energy. It's like that dog. It's not the 2-year-old German Shepherd is bouncing off the freaking walls. Alrighty, well, we're getting some work done. I feel like we're moving slowly on this today, but we're moving. We are getting some colors. We've got a pustule. We painted a pustule. I have to highlight the pustule. Can't leave our pustules unhighlighted, folks. It's just not done. There we go. All right. So let's get some of our purples underneath here on the bottom of the hand because we want that shadow. Cold purpley shadow under here. I feel like I need just a little bit of white in my green. Bring it just a little bit up further. There, better. Pustules are it's our word of the stream, right? It's like the word of the day. And I need to add a little water to my purple. It's a little strong. Why not make one, Twisted Oma? They're always so much better if you make them. I guess it's a lot of work, though. I mean, I love custard, but I don't make it much. I did make it for Thanksgiving a few years ago. Oh, they had a mince meat pie somewhere I was the other day. Dang. I think it was our local grocery store because I don't know if one of the people who like founded it or something is like from England, but they always have British imported stuff around the holidays. All right, some more purpley underneath the arm. Give it a colder, darker shadow. Gonna have to figure out how to make one. Oh, you're such a bad man. Oh no. You guys. Gauntlet thrown. It's good. I need the laugh today. I've got so much to do. It's like this giant pressure bearing down on top of me. Oh, wait. I need to see that you modded it. Oh. This is the Quindi authoritarian regime. Oh my gosh. I love it. I'm here for it. Absolutely here for it. It's the Quindi and Luca comedy hour, everybody. Get your popcorn, settle in. Just gonna lighten this up a bit here. Want the top of the arm to be light because it's out to the side here. It's not like getting a shadow from that big stick. Quindi is drunk with power. And then we want to kind of see, I feel like that hand, I feel like I could get more shadows over in here. Okay, kind of keeping an eye on the clock since we have a Luca on deck. Don't want to go long today. want to give Luca his Painting Reaper break that he's been waiting for. So what model are you painting today, Luca? That you're so excited about? And do you like painting Reaper because you normally paint a lot larger stuff and you find that doing 28s is a nice break? Is that part of it? Because I definitely find that switching scales is a nice break. Oh, the Musty Orc Lady. Nice. Okay, so it's bigger. No, you just love the new sculpts. Awesome. I'll have to look that one up. I don't know if I'm familiar. Alright, so blocking in a little bit more purple down here to get a harder shadow. And we've only got 3 minutes. Quindy, send me a picture of the orc bust that Luca's talking about, or half orc bust. I don't think I've seen it. And I'm going to put a shadow underneath this little bone. Just a little one. A tiny shadow for a tiny little bone. There we go. Oh, the real. Oh, okay. The troll lady. Yeah. So the one I've been painting. I won't whip mine out. Oh, he's painting her as a half orc. Yeah, you totally could. Yeah, great idea. Holy crap! I wish I would have thought about that. I wish I would have thought of that. Dang, I would have much rather painted a half orc. Oh, Kiki, I know, it's almost walk time. I know. But it's not yet. It's not. Yeah, we want a little bit more green over here, a little less yellow. I think I like it maybe a little bit more, but we'll pop a bit of yellow into here and see. Yeah, I think I do want to put more green, less yellow over here. We'll just have to figure it out. Well, good. I look forward to seeing your version then, Luca. I love painting half-orcs. I love the skin tones. Non-conventional skin tones you can do. I wish there were more half-orc busts. Now I'm tempted to paint all the elves I have as half-orcs. Alright, so we've made this look a little bit better here today. Alright, 1 minute. I think I'm at my limit. Because I want to make this greener, but I don't think I've got the time to really pop it in that way. I'm going to do a quick glaze, bring the green up a little bit more. Get my more washed out color. Alright. Oh, bye Crowley, have fun. The one that I painted with purple hair, Pendrake. But that's not canon. Alright, I'm going to let Luca take over, guys, since he's super psyched to start painting his half-orc. And I hope you all had fun today. I feel like I was doing a lot of futzing, but his arm definitely does look a lot better now. I still need to work on this part, but we're looking better down here. Hashtag feet. that's a problem. Well, there are feet on this model, but I don't know if you'd think they're sexy. But he does have feet. He does have feet. Especially his feet. Yeah, I need to paint the feet. Yeah, I'm working slowly today. But hey, you know, progress is progress, guys. Yeah, I need to green out this arm. It bugs me how yellow I made it. So, all right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Quindy, thank you for modding. And I'm going to leave you in the arms of Luca for the next hour and a half or whatever. I hope you have a lovely time. I hope Quindy doesn't hit everyone with the mod bat, including Luca, too much. And please stay. No, I have to go to the grocery store. Oh, now you've hurt Luca's feelings. All right, everybody. I love you all. Even Luca, even Quindy, everybody. I love you all. And I will talk to you later. Have a great stream, Luca. Bye-bye.